Good evening, dear viewers and our esteemed subscribers. Today, we are going to give you or to present you to a problem in mergers and acquisition taught under issues in financial management. So kindly welcome and go through the presentation until the end. And if you have any questions or clarifications, please feel free to share with us. Also, for more updates and more additional presentations on your area of concerns, we would like you to share with us your questions, and therefore we will be very happy if you can subscribe to our channel and like our channel, and therefore thank you very much. Let's go to our presentation direct. Here we are going to discuss mergers and acquisition, and I have told you earlier, Education Aid Society adopts the presentation model of questions and answer sessions, where you give us your questions and then we present to you a more elaborate answer with explanations and presentations as well in well animated PowerPoint. So the question reads as follows: discuss any four defensive mechanisms that a target company can employ under the threat of takeover. B. Reads Pedal plc is completing a complete share acquisition of Queen's plc. Pedal plc is offering 3 of its shares for every 2 shares of Queen's plc. So here you are given the exchange ratio. You are going to get the exchange ratio. This acquisition is exchanged in form of shares. So there is no cash transaction or consideration here. The consideration here is in form of shares, and the shares here is for every 2 shares, for every 3 shares of PLC. The Pedal plc is offering 3 of its shares for every 2 shares of Queen's plc. So that is the exchange ratio. The data relating to the two companies are shown below. So under narrative, earning to ordinary shares is 4,896, 4,000,000, sorry, 896,000. For Queen, it is 2,560,000. Here you are given earning per share. The earning per share is 16 pound for Pedal PLC. For Queen PLC, PLC stands for Public Limited Company. So when you hear of PLC, it is a public limited company. And as you are going to see in mergers and acquisition, especially acquisition, happens in a public interest or interest vested companies. Public interest vested companies, these are companies that are traded in the security exchange, and it has a public interest in it. Unlike a private company is individual owned company, so therefore it has its shares are not traded publicly. Unlike public or the companies that are trading their shares in security exchange, their shares are traded publicly. Therefore, here they are called public limited company. So you are given the earning per share of each company and then market price per share of each company. Here in mergers and acquisition question, you are required to compute always price earning ratio, and price earning ratio is going to help you in one way or the other. Either you are given price earning ratio so that the examiner requires you to compute earning per share, or you are given earning per share and price earning ratio and you are required to compute the market price per share, market price market price per share. So whichever way or option you are given, the examiner is testing your ratio analysis, and your education on that topic, and therefore you need to be well versed in this ratio analysis and the formulas and what you are required to have in hand. To the question, here you are asked question one, determine the maximum offer price that will not dilute the earning per share of Huge Limited. Question Roman 2 is compute the premium payable to the shareholders of Queen's Public Limited Company. Question number 3 is given that the growth rate of Huge Limited is 8%, while that of Queen Limited is 12%, compute the combined growth rate of the two companies. So let's go and see question 1, 2, and 3, and I'll try to explain in a more elaborate way. Kindly please note that this question is not going to give you a conclusive understanding of the entire merger and acquisition. If you do this question, it doesn't mean that the examiner is going to give you this set of questions. The examiner can play around with your mind and give you a different question. So therefore, you are required to read deeply in mergers and acquisition topics and do more questions and try more questions and see if you can understand the topic. So this question is just a topic, a question that is trying to give you one of the problems that the examiner may present to you during your examination, and therefore it doesn't mean that it is a conclusive question that most examiners give you during examinations. Examiner can twist the question and give you in a different way, and therefore you must have a deep understanding of the topic. So let's do the question. Suggested solution. Before I give you the question, I would like to give you a snapshot of mergers and acquisition, a takeover. A takeover is where one company acquires another for consideration. So when one company acquires the other one, the company that is acquiring the other one must give away a consideration. A consideration, this is the purchase is either the purchase price, and the purchase price can be in many forms. It can be in shares, it can be in cash, and it can be both, a mix of cash and shares. So therefore, takeover happens for reasons such as anticipated synergies between the acquiring company and the target company. The synergy here is, let's say, a company has a very big, wide customer base in, let's say, in a given market, while the other company has a very good technological advancement and equipment, and therefore they want to merge and their product, let's say they are dealing with one particular product, so therefore they merge so that they get a synergy. The other one is potential for significant revenue enhancement. When the two companies merge together, because of their individual worthiness, the revenue enhances, likely reduce operating cost, beneficial tax considerations to increase market share. Let's say if like Safaricom and let's say Airtel, if Airtel and Safaricom has a 50-50 market share and Safaricom wants to increase its share, it can go and let's say acquire Airtel so that it can have 100% market share. The other one is to reduce competition. The same as Airtel and Safaricom, those are the two big companies competing in telecommunication industry in Kenya. To reduce competition, Safaricom can acquire Airtel, and Airtel can also acquire Safaricom so that it becomes one entity. The other one is penetration strategy for new market. Let's say a company existing in Europe wants to come and venture into, let's say, a communication and industry. And in the communication industry in Kenya, for example, there is Safaricom. So let's say in that company, an example, this is just an example, Vodacom. Vodacom, let's say, goes to a country like Somalia and acquires telecommunication companies there. So therefore, it can easily penetrate the market. So those are the reasons why mergers and acquisitions happen. However, not all takeovers occur in a friendly manner. There are resistance or hostility posed by the target firms, either by the management or by the shareholders. A hostile takeover occurs when one business acquires control over a company against the consent of existing management. I told you takeover normally happens in public interest vested companies, like the companies trading in the security exchange. So if that company, let's say an example, Jumia is trading in Nairobi Security Exchange. If Jumia and another one, let's say Safaricom, also is trading in Security Exchange, because both of them are public interest vested companies, both of them they can take over the other. So therefore, there is all the time takeover does not happen in a friendly manner. So therefore, at times there are hostilities and between two company, one company trying to acquire the other, and the other one through the management or the shareholders resist. With the resist. Typically, the buying company purchases a controlling percentage of the voting shares of the target company. Here, the conflict of interest is, let's say, when company A acquires company B and more than 50% of the shares or 80% or 100% of the shares of B, company A becomes now the controlling entity of company B. So therefore, the management of company B takes instructions from the management of company A. So therefore, because of that power and corporate policy changes and what these two companies tend to pose hostility and show resistance towards the takeover. And I have told you here the takeover normally happens in public vested companies such as companies that trade on security exchange. Private owned companies takeover takes place at owners or shareholders' will. Therefore, there are three ways of takeover, and this one is not a conclusive note. So this is just a summary of mergers and acquisition. So therefore, you have to read deeply your notes and your classwork and understand this deeply this type of vertical acquisition, horizontal acquisition, and conglomerate acquisition. So let's move to the presentation. Strategies to avert hostile takeover. In the previous slide, we have discussed hostile takeover and the ways these takeover are done. In this episode, we shall highlight ways to mitigate hostile takeover that a company or management of the company can explore. I'm not going to dig deep into the definition of these steps and strategies. Kindly take your time and go and read what does each one mean, because I'm trying to save time and your understanding. Because if I go deep into this, I may not be able to grasp your attention when I am doing the computation part of this question. So therefore, here the first one is stock repurchase, poison pill, staggered board, shark repellent, golden parachute, green mail, crown jewels, and white knight. These are just a summary. So the list is not exhaustive. So you have to take and understand and read. And when the examiner asks you this similar question, and fortunately you can give an explanation. In the exams, the examiner can tell you give three strategies to avert hostile and explain. So you have to state and explain those three, and therefore this is not an exhaustive list. So you have to take your time and read your net. Let's go and do question one, Roman 1. B, that is Roman 1. Determine the maximum offer price that will not dilute the earning per share of Huge Limited. So let's say Huge Limited is the big company now, the parent company. Initially, it was a pedal and it was a queen. So when these two are merged, they become a huge company. So let's say huge company initially, huge company now is this the predator company, that is pedal. If initially its earning per share was, let's say, 10, the purpose or when huge company can say that this merger has been successful is when its earning per share is not diluted. Its earning per share not diluted, what we mean is if the earning per share pre-merger, during the pre-merger or before merger was 6, the earning per share drops to 4, that means its earning per share has been diluted, and the wealth of the shareholders of the pedal are now going to take less return at home because the earning per share has dropped from 6 to 4. So therefore, always the objective of huge or the predator is to maximize its earning per share after the merger. So therefore, let's compute the maximum offer price that will not dilute the earning per share of the huge limited. So this is one of the objective of the mergers and acquisition, to increase the earning per share of the company. So this is the formula. So kindly you have to understand this formula and put this into perspective during your examination. The offer price is given by maximum offer price is equal to price earning ratio. Now this is why the catch is. If you do not understand your ratio analysis well and did not arrive or compute the price earning ratio in the question, here you are not going to be able to tackle this question, because here you are required to have the price earning ratio of the predator, that is the pedal, and the earning per share. Earning per share you already given of the target. So all in all, if you are given price earning ratio, if let's say, and you are not given earning per share, but you are given price market price per share, you should be able to compute the earning per share so that you can come and apply here. So price earning ratio of pedal is market price per share divided by earning per share. So market price per share of a pedal is 200 and the earning per share is 16 pound. So therefore the price earning ratio of pedal is 12.50. So earning per share of queens is 25. So therefore maximum of our price is 12.5, 12.5, which is the price earning ratio of a pedal times the earning per share of the target farm. So therefore it is 12.5 times 25, and therefore you are going to get at the maximum far price that will not dilute the earning per share as 625 pound. So if you have not understood this well, the background of answering this question is you should have your ratio analysis and the formulas in your fingertips, so that if the examiner gives you one, you can compute the other one and you do that. So let's move to the next question. The next question is here is compute the premium payable to the shareholders of Queen's Public Limited Company. Premium here you are going to get offer price by pedal minus the market price per share of Queen. So here, pedal number of shares, you need to get the number of shares. Number of shares, how are you going to get the number of shares? Number of shares is here, there is also another catch. The catch is you need to know the formula of computing earning per share. Earning per share is earnings attributable to ordinary shareholders divided by the number of shares outstanding. The number of shares outstanding. So here you are given earning per share of each company. You are given the earnings attributable to shareholders, but you are not given the number of ordinary shares. So you have to compute this. Here, this is the earnings. So therefore, if let's say we make this x and we make x the subject of the formula, therefore this becomes the number of earnings attributable to ordinary shareholders divided by the earning per share. And therefore you are going to get 306,000 shares for pedal. Number of shares existing in Queen is 2 million is the earnings attributable to ordinary shareholders. You divide by the earning per share, you are going to get 102,400 shares. So market price per share of target, that is the Queen, is 350. Now this is very important because you are given, and one of the element in the equation is already given. So therefore you need to compute the offer price by pedal through the exchange ratio that you are given and the yes, through the exchange, you have the exchange ratio. You are given. You can compute the offer price using the market price per share. So the exchange ratio is 1.5, and this 1.5 comes from every three shares of pedal for two shares of queen. So that is 3 divided by 2, and you are going to get 1.5. But exchange ratio, now you have to understand what is the formula for exchange ratio. Exchange ratio, you're going to get the offer price divided by the market price per share of the predator. So here you have the exchange ratio. At times, the examiner will deny you the exchange ratio, but he's going to give you the offer price and the market price per share of the predator. This also market price per share of the predator, he may deny you because he can give you the price earning ratio and the earning per share So therefore, either way, you must have your ratio analysis in your fingertips. So let's do. Here we are going to say the exchange ratio is given by the offer price divided by market price per share of the predator. So we already have the exchange ratio, which is 1.5, but we don't have the offer price. We don't have the offer price, but we have the price market price per share of the predator, that is 200. So the offer price here is 200 times 1.5, and here you are going to get 300. So the premium here is market price per share of the target, market price per share of the target. Now this one is given in the question up there in the table, that market price is this. But however, I will also tell you that the examiner may not give you market price per share, but is going to give you the price earning ratio and the earning per share, so that you can compute the market price per share. So minus premium is equal to market price per share of the target minus the offer price computed above. That is, here you are going to get the premium, then you multiply by the total number of shares of queens. This total number of shares are the number of shares that pedal is trying to acquire. So you take 350, and 300 is given in the question. 300 we have computed here. You multiply by the number of shares outstanding for the target firm. The target firm here is Queen, and we have computed the number of shares here, and you are going to get a premium of 5,120,000 pounds. So here, the key element here is the catch, and the breakthrough here is you must have your ratio analysis in your fingertips. If the examiner denies you one and he gives you the other two, you can compute the other one. And that is how this question is trying to examine you, and how far you are applying your previous knowledge in ratio analysis and financial. Let's go to the second question. The second question reads, given that the growth rate of UG's Limited is 8%, while that of Queen Limited is 12%, uh, is 12% compute the combined growth rate of the two companies. So here, the growth rate here for this one is pedal. Please kindly understand that this is pedal. So here you take the initial earning. The growth rate combined is based on earnings. So it is based on earnings. So pedal earnings before the growth is 4,896,000. Pedal earnings after the growth is now 8%. 8% growth means 1.08%. 1.08% is 100% initially plus a growth of 8%, and therefore there you get 108%. So that you'll get, if you take this, you multiply by the current earnings, you are going to get the growth, the earnings after the growth. So here what I did is I took 1.08 times the initial growth, initial earnings. You are going to get the resulting earnings after the growth, that is 5,287,000, £680. So let's go for to Queens. Queens earnings before growth is £2,560,000. Queen's growth is 12%. So 12% means initially it was 100% plus a growth of 12%, and therefore you are going to get 1.12%, 1.12. So therefore you take 1.12, you multiply by the initial earnings, and therefore you are going to get this after the growth. So now let's match. To merge, you take the total earnings for both Pedal and Queen, that is before the growth. Total earnings of Pedal and Queen after the growth, after you merge them, it is that mil plus that, and therefore, please you refer to this where I have explained how I arrived at this and that, and you add the two. Now, combined growth is you take the latest total earning minus the latest total earning is these two added together plus total minus total earning before growth. Total earning before growth is 2 million to 4,896 plus 2,560, then you multiply by 500. Let's say now in your basic in mathematics where you say percentage increase, when you are working on percentage increase, let's say initially we had 50 shillings here. These 50 shillings increase to, let's say, 70 shilling. If you are asked to calculate the percentage increases, you take the current minus the initial, which is 50, you divide by the initial, which is 50, then you multiply by 100. And that is going to give you percentage increase. The same case here. So until we meet. Thank you.